An anti-feminist YouTuber just went on an unhinged rant on live TV.
Anyhow, what do you make of all this? Are you celebrating International Women's Day in a big way?
I think that we should focus on accomplishment rather than just being a woman. I don't see the need to have an International Women's Day by virtue of just being a woman. Why don't we focus on something that we have accomplished? 50% of the population is born a woman. You didn't do anything to become competent at something or become great at something. It's just, celebrating being a woman for being a woman. And what have we really accomplished? We don't do the majority of hard jobs in society. 1 out of 3 of us has had an abortion. 1 out of 4 of us has an STD. 90% of us have been on birth control. The birth rate is falling because of women's choices. At the end of the day, why don't we talk about accomplishment rather than just focus on being a woman for being a woman? It's the same thing as a participation trophy.
You just saw Pearl Davis, also known as JustPearlyThings on YouTube, give her thoughts on International Women's Day during an interview with Douglas Murray on Talk TV. And oof, there's a lot to unpack there. But first, I'm Brad Palumbo, and welcome back to Mediaite, your home for commentary and coverage on the intersection of media and politics. Now back to Pearl. Firstly, I do agree that there's no point in celebrating women simply for being women, but that's a complete straw man of what International Women's Day is actually about. According to the official website, it's about celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women, aka specific things they've done, not just being women. It's also about advocating for legal equality worldwide and fundraising for gender-based charities. There might be some specific things one could disagree with about their advocacy or the missions of the groups they're fundraising for, but that still does seem like a laudable goal, especially given the international focus. Because while legal equality has largely been achieved in Western nations like the US, and you could more credibly argue we don't need this kind of activism, there are still countries across the globe where women aren't equal to men, where they face shocking rates of violence, and where they sometimes even face routine genital mutilation. Advocating for these women isn't playing identity politics or celebrating women just for being women. And if Pearl, who built a massive YouTube following with anti-feminist content, had spent even 5 seconds Googling the holiday she was critiquing, she might know that. Now we've got to talk about the second part of Pearl's unhinged rant. To say that women don't do the majority of hard jobs in society is to totally discount not just the important role that women play in the workforce, but also the vital roles they play as mothers and caregivers, without which there would be no society. And what on earth do STD rates have to do with whether women's accomplishments are worth celebrating? And who do you think gave these women these STDs? Pearl? It'd be messed up to judge an entire demographic either way, but it's not necessarily true that women have more STDs than men. If you look at the actual data, something Pearl doesn't seem to do very often, it turns out it depends on which disease you're talking about. And in some of the cases where women are more likely than men to have a certain STD, that's due to biological factors. So it's not their fault. Also, why is she shaming women for taking birth control? That's just their personal choice, and it doesn't affect whether their accomplishments should be celebrated or not. Now, while I do think abortion is a negative thing that we should all want to avoid and see less of in society, it's also unfair to pin the blame for abortion solely at the feet of women. Many women who choose to get an abortion might not have made that choice if they had men in their lives ready to help them raise a child. But because of absentee men, they're all alone. And then they make that decision. I'm not saying that that necessarily justifies an abortion, but it's a lot more complicated than just blaming women for making terrible choices. This entire rant just comes across as a cherry-picked, misogynistic screed by a woman willing to throw other women under the bus to build an online brand. To be clear, I am somebody who thinks that identity politics and modern progressive feminism have all gone way too far. But this kind of fact-free, genuinely bigoted grifting by people like Pearl, while it might help enrich its practitioners, only discredits the much needed pushback to the excesses of the feminist movement. Alright guys, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree with Pearl or do you agree with me? And please do consider subscribing and sticking around and maybe even turning on those bell notifications. Plus, hit that like button, and with that, I'll see you all in the next video.